Hello, everyone. I really enjoyed reading all of your posts last week about your bilingual books and your investigations into other languages. I want to speak a little bit more about your groups that you were assigned to last week. I know that I received some of the initial questions that you have, but I know that you have questions about what do I mean about this group project. That is a big part of the work that you'll be doing for this course. So if we kind of use backwards design, what's you will need to produce by the end of the semester is what I'm calling a school community report, where basically you and your group members will take on the role of uh, of teachers or concerned members who want to inform a school about different policies or actions that the school could take to engage the community that you've been assigned more and better support the students from that community more. So there are a few steps before you get to that final report, and there are two related assignments that you actually turn in prior to that report. One assignment that we're focusing on this week is the classroom observation. So in order to start to think about what do we mean by effective supports for specific students, especially what we call differentiation, I'm going to have you observe a classroom. Now, if we think about this idea that you have to produce a school community report at the end, one thing that your group will need to decide is to choose a focal school that serves the population that you've been assigned. So when I put the book groups together, I try to consciously, make sure that at least one person per group is working or doing observations in a school that serves this population. So you should communicate with each other and find out who in your group does have students in the population in the classrooms that they are observing or working in. For example, there might, if you have been assigned students from China, there should be at least one person in your group who has students from China in their classroom. Maybe there are more than one person in the group, and if that's the case, then the group will have to choose which school is going to be the one that is your focal school. So that's the first thing, is I would like to have the name of the focal school by the end of next week. Secondly, you will need to decide where you're going to conduct classroom observations. So it would be nice, it's not a hard requirement, but I think it would be nice if for the classroom observation assignment that you observe a classroom that has members of students from the community you've been assigned to. So again, if you have been assigned China, it would be nice if there are students from China in the classroom that you observe and that you write your report on for your assignment. If that's not possible, that's fine. It's completely okay. But I would ask that at least one person per group do their classroom observation in such a classroom. So what you need to do this week for your task in your groups is to get together and make sure that there is at least one person who can do the classroom observation this way. And then so the other group members can let me know where they're planning to do their classroom observation assignment. I would like you to use the discussion board tab that's in the groups. So every group has a discussion board that's particular for their group, and I can go in and I can see the discussions that your group are having. Some of you have already started to use this tool and others have not. So if you have not used this tool, I would like you to use it this week to post what your group decides about the classroom observations. The second part of the preparation for your final group assignment is what I'm calling a piece of evidence about the community, right? So I want you to use this class to think a little bit outside of the classroom and start to understand the lives of students, where they're coming from and where their parents came from, so that you better understand the needs of particular communities. And so I would like you to collect evidence about questions that could be related to language use or attitudes. How and when do people use their various languages? Maybe you could think back to that survey that we did at the beginning of class. Also, you can think about their experiences learning or losing languages, either individually or as a community. You can think about experiences of immigration, and also think about particular challenges or issues that might affect that community specifically. And I have some ideas that I'm thinking about when I assign these particular communities to think about. So if you have any questions about that, you can ask me, and I might be directing you in certain directions. But again, if something comes up or if you're curious about something, you can always add that to your list of questions. Now, how are you going to answer those questions? Well, I accept, in general, 3 different types of evidence to answer these questions. One is observations, where you go to the community and you observe what happens in the community. I've even had people do things like go to a restaurant or a church or a public place and do observations that way. You could interview someone from that community. It could be somebody who works in a community-based organization or a fellow teacher who comes from that community. Or you could also do a survey, just like the one that we did in our class, where you survey different members of that community about the questions that you'd like to have the answers to. So one thing that I like to have, or I recommend for groups, is that the people in the groups get different kinds of evidence. So one thing you can start to talk about in your group is what kinds of questions are you going to ask, and who's going to do which type of evidence. I'll be reviewing in more detail, especially next week. We will start thinking more, especially about the idea of observations and interviews, more in depth, and I'll go over that part of the assignment more next week. But this week at least, if you can still start to think about that process, because that second assignment, the evidence assignment, is due in November. So okay, so that's, again, I will be trying to set up meetings with everyone, mostly for advisement, but of course we can discuss in person during the advisement sessions any questions that you have about the group project. Thank you.